Wondra sits in a jail cell. He is back in Idaho, accused of killing young Michael Vaughan.
You're pure evil. You have no heart. You have no soul.
Wondra is accused of murdering her then 5-year-old son in 2021. Would you think you'll ever get the answer as to why?
No, because there is no answer to why. Why would somebody hurt an innocent little boy? What answer could you give? What answer could you possibly give? How scared was he? Did he ask for me? Did he ask for Tyler?
Stacey Wondra has been charged with first-degree murder and second-degree kidnapping and destruction of evidence.
Michael Monkey Vaughan went missing from his Fruitland neighborhood on July 27, 2021.
This is a criminal investigation.
Now, more than 4 years later, in newly unsealed court documents, Fruitland police named 4 people they believed are involved in Michael's murder. Those 4 names are ones we've heard before.
This is Sarah Wondra. This is Sarah's husband, Stacey Wondra. This is Brandon Shirtliff, Adrian Lucian.
As for what these 4 people have in common, they were all staying at the Wondras' home when Michael disappeared in 2021. That's just half a mile from Michael's home where he was last seen. In the PCA, police pointed to video evidence they say showing Shirtliff walking around the neighborhood. They say Shirtliff helped move Michael's body in a duffel bag temporarily to his mom's home in Kuna before standing guard as they buried him in the Wondras' Fruitland backyard. Stacey Wondra told police the 4 hoped to sell Michael for $10,000 each. He says the idea came from Adrian Lucian. Idaho News 6 is now learning Lucian was arrested and released in Indiana in October for a traffic-related misdemeanor. Sarah Wondra is currently serving time in the Idaho State Prison System for unrelated charges. She's eligible for parole in early 2026.
Karen, is there any connection between the Vaughan family and the home where police had been searching?
No, we've heard this more than once from the family representatives and from the police department that there is no connection between the Vaughan family and the home where this search took place.
As you know, from the time Michael went missing, this has been an all-hands-on-deck investigation, and it remains very active and an ongoing investigation. You can't take one of our most precious citizens from us and ever expect us to stop. During the course of this investigation to date, we received credible information that the remains of Michael Vaughan could be found in the backyard at 1102 Red Wing Street in Fruitland. As a result, the Fruitland Police Department obtained a search warrant for the residence along with the front and backyards. That search warrant was served on November 11th. It was a Friday. We served that late in the evening. Upon entry, officers encountered Sarah Wondra, one of the known occupants of the home, and Sarah was subsequently arrested based on probable cause that she had knowledge of Michael's death and failed to report that death to law enforcement. The following day, the Fruitland Police Department, joined by the Idaho State Police, the Idaho Mountain Search and Rescue, the Fruitland Fire Department, and the Fruitland Public Works Department began a very methodical excavation of the backyard of the Wondras' home. During that excavation process, the Idaho Mountain Search and Rescue, Mountain States detection dogs deployed multiple certified human remains detection dogs on the property, all of them alerting to the presence of human remains. Ground penetrating radar was also used and deployed, detecting anomalies in the backyard. We completed the excavation of the entire backyard and removed over 250 yards of dirt. Prior to backfilling the yard, the dirt was meticulously sifted for any potential human remains. We did not find Michael's remains. Although the remains of Michael Vaughan were not recovered, we strongly believe, based on evidence, that Michael was abducted and is deceased, and that his remains were buried and later moved from the property. As of today, the whereabouts of his remains are unknown. However, the investigation is active, fluid, and ongoing. Once the excavation was complete, we conducted a thorough search of the Wondras' residence. The search was productive, and additional investigative evidence was recovered and is currently being processed.
An hour's worth of body camera footage showing Stacey Wondra FaceTiming with detectives and directing to where Monkey's body was buried in his backyard.
It's like right under that mound area. It's right under the mound. About where at compared to the trees?
A little like right to the right of the trees area. It should be, it should be a garbage bag.
Okay, what color is the garbage bag?
It would either be white or black. We only had two colors.
Is the duct tape still going to be over his mouth?
It should be.
Okay.
I didn't watch to take them off.
Okay.
So you should have everything intact as it was.
He claims he watched the burial happen.
Okay. How far down is Michael?
I don't know how far she actually dug.
And the she he's referring to, that's his wife Sarah, another suspect in the case. Stacey says Adrian, a third suspect, was also there for the burial.
Out of 300 homes, police say K-9s tracked Michael's scent to the home where Stacey, his wife Sarah, and their two roommates Brandon Shurtleff and Adrian Lucian lived.
As Joe mentioned, a newly released probable cause affidavit filed in June lays out the interviews following Michael's disappearance. Again, during these initial searches, police say K-9s tracked Michael's scent to the fence line of the home where Stacey Wondra, his wife Sarah, and their two roommates, Brandon Shurtleff and Adrian Lucian, lived. All four of those individuals have been named people of interest in Michael's disappearance. One of Michael's neighbors told police they saw Michael riding a bike outside of the Wondras' home the day that he disappeared. Another neighbor said they saw that same tricycle at the Wondras' home during a garage sale months before Michael disappeared. The Wondras initially denied any involvement, but then in November of 2022, Stacey asked to meet with investigators. The PCA states Stacey claims he was home the night Michael was allegedly abducted and saw Sarah carrying Michael into the house. Stacey allegedly told police it was Adrian's idea to take a child to sell for money, and they would get a $10,000 cut. Stacey claims Sarah told everyone to, quote, follow her lead. Stacey told investigators they took him to Brandon's mother's home in Kuna that night, where they left Michael overnight. Stacey claims the other three returned to Brandon's mom's house the next day and brought Michael back to the Wanderers' home in Fruitland. Stacey told police Michael was not alive, and Sarah and Adrian buried him in the Wanderers' backyard. 2 days after Stacey's interview with police, they executed a search warrant and excavated the Wanderers' backyard. The affidavit says cadaver dogs alerted to the same area where Stacey told detectives Michael's body was buried, but to this day, Michael has not been found.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Today is July 20th, 2026. My name is Samantha with Missing PNW Crimes Revisited. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here, being a part of Michael's army, Monkey's army. Jen is in the house. Pretty Assessor is here. Thank you guys so much for coming. We've got BRANDI Vaughan also in the house. Good to see you, hun. Brenda is here. Kim in Colorado is here. Thank you so much for coming in. Preschool Granny, Darlene. Thank you guys so much for being here. I see some new people. Let's see. 12-Eye Cat, welcome in, welcome in. It's always nice having new people here to learn about Michael Vaughan's case. Beverly Lawyer is here. Brandy, Michael Vaughan's mom, says, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. We will never give up, and we will never, ever give up. Voices Behind the Wall is here. Thank you so much for coming. It's good to see you. Nature Walks, good to see you here. Thank you guys so much for being so supportive of the Vaughan family and myself as we are working super, super hard. Good afternoon, past to bring all of the information that's going on in Stacey Wondra's upcoming trial. Today, we're going to go over a motion that was filed basically to try to throw out all of the K-9 alerts and the handler's testimony. Dukes is here. Hello, hello, little cupcake. I wish I had me a cupcake. Karen is here. Kimberly Lehman is here. Thank you so much for coming in. All in the tanks. So good to see you guys. Just to let you guys know, I have cooperated with Justin from Clutch Them Pearls, and we're doing a collab later this afternoon at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Purple's in the house. Good to see you. Cotton Candy is here. Thank you. Shelly is here. So right after this live, I will be going live with Justin, and we are streaming on his channel and my channel. He wants some updates on Michael's case, so we're going to talk about everything. And then do not forget that today is Monkey Monday. Go over to BRANDI NEAL Vaughan, her YouTube channel, and subscribe and go watch her live. She is put that up for 7 o'clock her time. I believe that's Mountain Time. Don't quote me on that. But lots of things happening today. Lots of things are happening today. Very, very busy. I got a chance to relax over the weekend. I went crabbing with my husband. We did an all-nighter on the dock in the dark. Beautiful moon was out. It was nice. Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful sitting out on the bay during the night. All of the stars. We could see the Milky Way up above us. Caught some crabs. Had a few drinks. We ate some clam chowder while we were there. Some fish and chips. We had an amazing, oh my gosh. We ordered a full order of biscuits and gravy from Fern Cafe in Tillamook, Oregon. And let me tell you, we both had leftovers. It was a huge, huge, giant breakfast with bacon and eggs and hash browns and all the things. So I came home with a clear head. I noticed while I was gone that documents had came in probably the end of last week. So that's why we're here to go over those court documents. I love court documents. They give us a lot of information, and I cannot believe the list of dogs that were used in the search for Michael Vaughan. And that's who we are here to talk about today, is Michael Joseph Vaughan. He was abducted from Fruitland, Idaho on July 27th, 2026. We're only 7 days away, you guys, from it being 5 years since Michael was abducted and murdered. Next week, Brandi's got something special going on. She's going to be trying to live stream from her channel while she has a press conference that she's doing 11 a.m. her time, and then at 5 p.m. they're getting together at a park. Brandi, I forgot the name of the park, babe. I'm sorry. At 5 p.m. So if you're in the area, please go to the park in support of Michael Vaughan. They're doing a vigil later in the evening. They're going to be doing rock painting and fingerprinting children, which is something great to have for your children in case something like this. Lord, just really pray that that never happens in case something like this happens to your child like it happened to Michael Vaughan. Because we do know that stranger abductions are very rare. And Michael was abducted right near his home, right around the corner from his house. 4 monsters were in the neighborhood when Michael wandered away from home. Tyler was in the house, waking up little Buggy, changing her diaper, ordering pizza. He had Tyler had seen Michael on the way into the bedroom as he went to go wake Buggy up. And when he came back out, Michael was not in the house. He searched high and low. BRANDI ended up coming back from work. They went into a panic and 911 was called when they couldn't find Michael at 7:21 p.m. on July 27th, 2021. Been 5 years. It's been a long time and a long road for the Vaughan family. There are 4 named suspects. Stacey Wondra is going to trial in September for the murder and abduction of Michael Vaughan and destruction of evidence. Sarah Wondra will be arrested in October of 2026 for the same charges: first-degree murder, second-degree kidnapping, and destruction of evidence. Adrian Lucien got together with Sarah Wondra and decided that they were going to try to make some cash, and they were going to abduct a child and sell Michael so they could all make $10,000 each. That is what Stacey Wondra has told detectives. Brandon Shirtliff knows exactly where Michael is. We know that Stacey Wondra told detectives that Michael was buried in their backyard, and Fruitland Police Department, Sheriff's Office, and a lot of other agencies got together and dug up the Wondra's backyard. They did not find Michael. They believe that Michael was moved to an unknown location, and Brandon Shirtliff is responsible for moving Michael from that backyard to an unknown location. Brandon needs to tell investigators where Michael Vaughan is. If anybody has any information, please call the Fruitland tip line at 208-642-6006, or you can email findmichael@fruitland.org. No tip is too big or too small. Let law enforcement decide whether or not your tip is credible. You could collect over $50,000 with any information leading to the whereabouts of Michael Joseph Vaughan, and you can also remain anonymous. And I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to, because these 4 individuals are dangerous. Stacey Wondra's been playing the victim like he always does, using his fetal alcohol syndrome and all of his other mental disabilities as an excuse as to why he told detectives that Sarah Wondra kidnapped Michael, came into the house with Michael, that Adrian and Brandon helped her, and all of the horrific things that happened thereafter. And I just don't understand it. Yes, Stacey Wondra has fetal alcohol syndrome. Yes, he was diagnosed with mental disabilities early in his life. I don't know that he was diagnosed with anything, recent. So there's that. And the question that I have is, if Stacey Wondra really was coerced or gave some kind of false confession, why would Stacey Wondra tell the detectives that his wife kidnapped Michael with the help of Adrian Lucien and Brandon Shirtliff? Why did he say he witnessed all of that? Why would he put them in the hot seat and say everything that he has said? He could have blamed the RSOs that lived right next door. He could have named any Blow Joe in the entire neighborhood, but he didn't. He accused his wife and Adrian and Brandon for kidnapping and murdering Michael Joseph Vaughan. Isn't that strange to you guys? Because it's really, really strange to me that he put himself and his wife and roommates in the hot seat and now wants to claim that that's a false confession. It doesn't make sense. He could have said anything at all, but he chose to accuse his wife and roommates, and of course plays the victim and doesn't take any accountability for anything that he's done. He just sat by and watched it all. He just went back and forth into his bedroom. He heard the duct tape when they decided to duct tape Michael. He saw them put Michael in the duffel bag cover him with clothes. But he proceeds to get into his GMC truck and go to Cuna with Michael Vaughan, where Michael Vaughan stayed overnight until Sarah, Brandon, and Adrian got together and went to go get him the next morning. And the key pieces of evidence here that are huge, what we're talking about today, is we have cadaver dogs that hit at the Wondras' backyard. We have cadaver dogs that hit in Cuna at Brandon Shirtliff's mother's house. We have a cadaver dog that hits on the Wondras' Lexus. These are corroborating Stacey Wondra's apparently false confession. So how does that work? It doesn't, because Stacey Wondra did have involvement in Michael Vaughan's abduction and murder. It tries to play the victim along with Sarah, Adrian, and Brandon. They all want to play victim. They all want to say they were set up. They didn't do anything, right? Somebody out there knows something, so call that Fruitland Police tip line 208-642-6006, or you can email findmichael@fruitland.org. Please be Michael's hero, the family's hero. We really need a hero to give us any and all information that you possibly can, even though there is 20,000 pages of discovery in Michael's case that will be used at Stacey Wondra's trial. The deflection here, though, is real, and it's very aggravating. Very, very aggravating. But we have to keep in mind the defense is doing their job. What they are filing and all these motions isn't, I mean, it's the same thing that any defense attorney would do to try to protect his client, which is Stacey Wondra. And even though we know that Stacey Wondra is a monster, his attorney has to do what he has to do, which is try to get his client out of all of this. And just keep that in mind if you're frustrated, if you're upset. I know I've had to remind myself several times. So let's just see what's going on in chat. YouTube Girly is here. Thank you so much for coming in. Big Oop is in the house. Thank you so much for coming. Kimberly gifted 10 PNW Revisited memberships. Oh my gosh. How generous of you. Let's dance. If you received one of those gifted memberships, please thank Kimberly. Thank you so much for coming in, hun. I appreciate that so very much. That's just amazing. Thank you. Brandy Vaughan says it's the Fruitland Community Park. It's at 505 Southwest 3rd Street, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., July 27th of 2026. Candlelight vigil will be at 8:15 p.m. If you're in the area, please support Brandy, the Vaughan family, Michael Vaughan, and, you know, go paint some rocks with the kids. She's also passing out some of Michael Vaughan's little Hot Wheel cars to the kids that come. You know, there's a lot going to be going on. I know there's going to be snacks there. So join the Vaughan family and just show support. That's all we're asking, is just for some support. We know that they've been going through a very difficult time and definitely need that support. Whew. All right. Sorry if I sound like I am talking too fast. I have a lot to do today and a lot of stuff to go over. And I really just want to hop right into this. Ashley Higgins, thank you so much for coming in. I know, I wish I could be there too, YouTube Girly. I would love to go, but it is on a weekday. Justice for Monkey. That's all we're here for. We want justice. That is what we are here for, is justice. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, and we are going to look at some stuff. I just want to talk about the motions that have been brought up. There's a motion to seal records pursuant to the ICAR. Basically, it's just trying to seal evidence that are in documents. There's the motion here, motion in limine to exclude K-9 experts, and motion for hearing reliability of scientific evidence. And I want to talk about that in just a second. And then there's a memo in support to exclude K-9 experts and motion for hearing reliability of scientific evidence. What I want to talk about right now is what is the motion in limine to exclude K-9 experts, and motion. So this is two things in this motion, and motion for hearing reliability of scientific evidence. And I did some research because I really wanted to find out what this is. A motion in limine combined with a motion for a reliable hearing challenges questionable K-9 evidence. It's asking the judge to prevent a K-9 expert from testifying and to force pretrial inquiry to ensure that their methods meet scientific standards. The motion in limine pretrial request to exclude evidence that is prejudicial, irrelevant, or unreliable. It prevents the jury from hearing unproven or junk science. That's what they're trying to say this is, you guys, that these K-9s and their handlers is just a bunch of junk evidence, junk science. Motion for reliability hearing, often tied to these certain standards depending on your jurisdiction, and it asks the judge to hold an evidentiary hearing to evaluate if the dog's training, alerts, and handlers interpretation actually meet baseline scientific reliability before trial. And this is where they're going to run into some problems, okay? Because these two particular cadaver dog handlers that went to the preliminary hearing are very educated and have been doing this for years. Julie Gibson is actually an expert witness in court to be able to testify, okay? And their dog training is outstanding. I just don't see any way that they're going to be able to tear down these two women. I really don't. They are so friggin' smart. And they both said that their dog did alert in the backyard of the Wondra's house. And Julie Gibbons' dog is the dog that alerted also in Kuna at Brandon Shirtlift's mom's house. Do I think that they meet the baseline scientific reliability for trial? Absolutely, 1000%. And I don't think that they're going to be able to get this thrown out. I really don't. I really don't. So many people are here. McSporan from Idaho. Maggie, welcome in. Callie Dime is here. She says, absolutely, after the attack on Twin Towers, they used cadaver dogs to find the rest of the remains of the victims. They were able to identify by finding a finger that trained cadaver dog hit on. Wow. Yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult. Clever Phase is here. Thank you guys so much for coming in. All right. So we've got 28 pages of discovery, or of this motion, I should say. And we need to hop right into it. The one particular one that I want to go over first is the big one. I believe, let's just blow this up. This is the one that's 28 pages, guys. And the other motion is basically, the motion that's filed, what I just described to you. And I don't want to go over that. It's 2 pages long, and one of them is just a bunch of signatures. So this is the actual motion. That is what we need to go over. It's like they file a motion and then they turn around and file another one, and it's a memorandum in support of motion in limine to exclude K-9 experts and motion. So there's 2 here. Just want to say that again, 2 here, and a motion for hearing under IRE 702 on reliability of scientific evidence. And again, what they're trying to do is take away the cadaver dogs alerts. They are trying to get it to where these K-9 handlers cannot testify at Stacey Wondra's trial. And in order for them to do that, they have to have a court hearing to prove whether or not their scientific evidence is reliable. And they're calling it junk science. So I'm going to try to keep an eye on chat as much as I can, but you guys know that sometimes it's very difficult to keep an eye on track while keep an eye on chat while reading. Plus, I do need to get through this because I am going live again at 4 p.m. In case you are just coming in, I am doing a collaboration with Justin from Clutch Them Pearls. So please come over, join me here at Missing PNW Crime Revisited, or you can go to Justin with Clutch Them Pearls to watch that live. And we're going to be talking about all of this because Stacey Wondra is not the victim here. He's not. And all of these motions that they are filing where he's claiming to be victim, they know if you allow Stacey and Stacey's mom and that FaceTime to be played in court, do you see a jury not convicting Stacey Wondra? They want that thrown out. They want the Thanksgiving letter thrown out because Stacey Wondra voluntarily did that on his own free will, confessed to what happened to Michael Vaughan, and wrote a Thanksgiving letter to the Vaughan family. There is so much. He wants first-degree murder, second-degree kidnapping dismissed like he didn't do it. Like a slap on the hand, and he's just going to get away with it all, and it's just not going to happen. And me and Justin want to talk about it all. So, State of Idaho versus Stacey James Wondra. I better get a drink. Comes now, Stacey James Wondra, the defendant, by and through his attorneys of record, and then names all of his public defenders, and hereby submits the following memorandum in support of motion to limine to exclude K-9 experts and motion for hearing under the IRE 702 on reliability of scientific evidence. Statement of facts. On July 27, 2021, Michael Vaughan was last saw by his father, Tyler Vaughan, around 6 to 6:15 p.m. when Tyler went to lay down with his youngest child. Wow. Okay, so it starts right off with that's not what happened. Tyler did not go in that bedroom to go lay down with Buggy. He went in the bedroom to wake Buggy up. Really, you got to aggravate me like right off of the bat? Wow. Around 6:45, after Tyler had ordered pizza, he went back into the living room and noticed that Michael was no longer on the couch playing his Nintendo Switch. Tyler began to look around the house and the splash pad, as Michael was known to wander the neighborhood, which Michael was not known to wander the neighborhood, okay? He left and wandered off this time on July 27th of 2021, and one other time when he followed his brother, left the house to follow his brother to the splash pad. So they need to get their facts straight here. Police were called at 7:21 p.m. to report that Michael was missing from July 27th until present day. Fruitland Police Department, along with the FBI and countless other law enforcement agencies, have devoted a magnitude of efforts to find Michael Vaughan. To this date, Michael has not been found. And then it talks about seeing the affidavit that was filed on June 25th of 2025. As part of the efforts to find Michael, Fruitland Police Department tapped into the live scent tracking K-9 and human remains detection K-9 networks to try to find some lead as to where Michael was located. Exhibit D. Starting on July 28, 2021, Fruitland Police Department employed K-9s from Idaho Fish and Game, Idaho Mountain Rescue, Mercer County, California K-9 Banshee, and handler Dustin Witt, Mountain States Detection Dogs, Inc., a company ran by Julie Gibson and her two K-9 partners, Yodi and Yannick, and National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, K-9s. Exhibit D. As late as February 14th of 2025, Fruitland Police Department employed Fide Canum Cold Case and their K-9 resources. So, okay, so just February 14th, Valentine's Day of 2025, they employed more K-9 resources. They must have been looking for Michael someplace. Exhibit D, notably from the K-9 searches performed at the preliminary hearing, the state focused on three K-9, the state focused on 3 K-9 teams that include 1 K-9 and 1 handler. Exhibit F, these teams were handler Witt and K-9 Banshee, handler Gibson and K-9 Yodi, and handler Holbert with K-9 Bannock. Exhibit F. However, between July 2021 and February 2025, there were the following K-9 searches, both tracking and cadaver capabilities, Exhibit D and H. This is a huge, you guys, long list of cadaver handlers that were deployed and used in Michael Vaughan's case. During searches for Michael, this is other than the Wondras or Cuna or the Lexus, and I'm also assuming that that will also be in here. There's a lot of names, K-9s, and everything else. So what we're going to go through is the basic information here. I'm not going to name all the dogs. I'm not going to name all of the names of the people, the handlers. So July 28th, 2021, K-9, it was the K-9, the handlers, tracking teams around the neighborhood. So on July 28th, 2021, tracking teams around the neighborhood. On July 29th, there were more tracking teams around the neighborhood. And I'm assuming, since this is so close to Michael Vaughan's actual abduction, that they're using as many dogs and as many handlers as possible to try to find Michael in all those fields and farmland down below the bluff in the neighborhood. you know, every single place they could possibly look for Michael. And there is a long list here of dogs. July 30th of 2021, cadaver teams around the neighborhood. So look at this list. I'm just going to say, like, there looks to be at least 10 or more here. Cadaver teams around the neighborhood on July 30th. July 31st of 2021. And then down here in parentheses, you can see cadaver teams around the neighborhood. So more cadaver teams went out. On August 1st, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children Cadaver searched the splash pad and the drainage system. August 2nd of 2021, K-9 Banshee and Dustin Witt, a live scent tracking dog. This is the dog that found the tricycle over the bluff that hit on the Wondra's house out of 300 homes in the neighborhood. Their garage, their fence line, the tricycle had been behind that fence line where he hit, per Carson Starkey's testimony. Also hit on the corner of Meadow Lark and Red Wing, where Dorothy Starkey said she saw Michael riding a tricycle. And found the tricycle over the bluff, or actually didn't find the tricycle down in the bluff, but we know it was down in the bluff and it hit down there. And of course, the tricycle was found. And we know that the tricycle was in the Wandra's yard because there was a witness in the spring of 2021 that saw the tricycle in the garage in the spring. And then Stacey Wondra himself talked about that tricycle. So that's Dustin Witt. Also, Dustin Witt and the K-9 was also used on August 3rd. And then on August 4th, there was another handler and K-9 used. August 5th, a K-9 was used, possible suspect's vehicle at Fruitland Police Department, 7053 Rivers Way. So they had a possible suspect vehicle and a dog was used to look at that car. Isn't it interesting to find out how many K-9 units and handlers there were and where and what they were all doing? We're learning so much about this investigation. All of the hard work by all of the dog handlers, the K-9s, law enforcement, all of the agencies coming together to find Michael. August 7th, a cadaver dog search around bluffs, because we know that the tricycle does end up being found behind the bluff sign, which started, you know, sparking up questions because Dorothy Starkey talked about seeing Michael on a tricycle. August 11th, 2021, irrigation ditch near Splash Pad Island on Ontario side of the river, tree farm on Southwest 8th and Southwest 9th Street. August 17th, 3200 North Oregon. November 15th, Wandra's house. Oh, wow. So they go back to the Wandra's house on November 15th. And we know that because that's when Detective Crimmin is with this particular cadaver dog. November 16th, the Snake River Search and Rescue. November 16th, there was a search. It's not saying where. November 16th, Valley County Search and Rescue, Idaho Mountain Search and Rescue Unit. June 27th of 2022, October 5th of 2022, searched the 1100 Red Wing house. So, wow, they looked at the Carson's house in October 5th of 2022, because I'm pretty sure 1100 is Carson Starkey's address. November 12th, deployed 1102 Red Wing and all alerted. And we are talking, this is when these are not Julie Gibson and the Holbert dogs, okay? This is different teams that were there November 12th of 2022. This is when they're excavating the Wondra's backyard. And it is Tokyo with handler Jen Skeldon and Franker Ron Christensen. 6 other K-9 teams deployed, 1102 Red Wing, and all alerted. What? And 6 others. So you have 2 here, 6 other K-9 teams. Then you have Julie Gibson and the Holbert handlers deployed at 1102 Red Wing and all alerted. That's huge, you guys. Tried to debunk that the dogs didn't actually hit on something in the Wanderer's backyard. That's insane. And now I have to go over here. Misdemeanor in the house. Trish in the house. Thank you guys so much for being here. Catering wrench. Oh, I am so sorry, Brandy. I know this is hard. I'm so sorry. It's a dog conspiracy. That's what they want you to think. Wow. I'm just sitting here just stunned and shocked by that. That's crazy. That is crazy. That's 1, 2, plus 6. That's 8, 9, 10. That's 10 dogs, you guys, that alerted in that backyard. Or alerted at their home, whether it was a yard or not. November 14th, searched in Cuna. Takeo did not alert. Brewster showed slight change of behavior, and Yodi produced alert. So there's 3 dogs here. 1 had a slight change in behavior. Yodi alerted, and 1 dog did not. November 14th, Takeo and handler Jen Skeldon searched in Cuna. November 14th of 2022, that is Yodi and Julie Gibson. November 15th, 2022, searched the Snowbell house in Cuna. April 12th, a unit searched 1100 Red Wing next door to the Wanderer's house. So that's the second time they were at the Carson's house. April 13th, 2023, Yodi and handler Gibson searched 1100 Red Wing. It's not saying whether they hit or not, though, over there. From what I understand, no dogs alerted at the Carson's house. February 7th of 2024, Yodi and handler Julie Gibson. March 9th, 2024, November 25th of 2024, Yodi and Yannick. Doesn't say where they were or what they were doing. November 26th of 2024, search Birding Island in New Plymouth, and it was Yodi and handler Gibson. So they searched somewhere else. Island in New Plymouth. I don't even know where that is. We'll have to go back through these docs and look up some of these locations another time. January 29th of 2025. Again, using Yodi and Yannick and others. To search the Fruitland impound lot. I'm assuming that was one of the, either the truck or the Lexus or the Toyota or all 3. I don't know. February 14th, actually, January 29th of 2025. Search the Fruitland impound lot. In January of 2025 is when J.D. Huff asked for $6,000 to purchase something of evidential value. And yeah, so maybe that evidence that they got, which I have been told was a car of some sort. And yeah, right after he purchases that, there's a search at the Fruitland impound lot. So that was probably a car. February 14th, more of 2025, more dogs were used. February 24th of 2025, searched Mountain View Cemetery in Lindor, Idaho, which that is the cemetery that Brandon Shirtleff's grandmother owns, and now also Tina Mariel owns. They did go up and excavate that all natural, or I don't know if they excavated, but they went with ground penetrating radar, and I don't know what else they did during that search, but they did search that cemetery that Brandon Shirtleff's family used or owns, sorry. March 25th, 2025, searched Mountain View Cemetery. So you have the 24th and 25th of 2025. They've got dogs out there at a cemetery. Can you guys imagine how confusing that was for dogs to be out there searching a cemetery? But I mean, how do they go about doing that? That'd be something to look into. Like, do they, like, I don't know. How would they search just for Michael in a cemetery when they're all trained to hit on residual scent, meaning after, you know, things have been buried? How could they specifically train their dogs to hit on Michael in that cemetery, I guess, is my question. That's interesting, and now I'm going to have to look that up because K-9 dogs fascinate me. Of these K-9 searches, both of live scent tracking and human remains detection, the following positive alerts occurred that the state presented at the preliminary hearing during March of 2026. Exhibit F, K-9 Banshee and handler Witt tracked 3 trails based on starting not at the Vaughn's house, but at a random intersection with scent pads from a pillow used by Michael, as well as family members, and a shoe used from Michael, with the possibility of other family members' scent being on those shoes. Oh, give me a break. That's not even true. Shoes are the best thing you can use when giving out a scent article because of all of the sweat and all of the chemicals that are in your body. They collect down in your shoes. Michael was 5. Buggy was tiny. Everybody else's feet in that house were too big to be in his shoes. How could the family's scent be inside? Because you know that's where they got the scent from, is inside that shoe, right? Give me a break. And of course, they're bringing up the pillow, but I'll just have you know right now, Dustin Witt only used Michael's shoes on the first day when he hid in all of those places, at the Wondра's house, at the garage, at the fence, on the corner where the tricycle was, with Michael being seen on it, down the bluff and everything else. Only those shoes were used. Ugh. Exhibit F and K-9 Banshee was in scent according to her owner and followed 3 trails. Exhibit D, one of the trails leading to a scent of deer antlers in a yard. Yes, to a yard. And the dog was just curious, as what Dustin Witt said about these antlers, because his dog had never ran into anything like that. And he got right back on track, is what Dustin Witt said. One of those trails leading to the edge of a bluff area where Banshee was so in scent that the trail was ended even through K-9 Banshees attempted to go in to a particularly thorny, overgrown bush. And in that bush is where the tricycle once was. Somebody testified in court that he found that tricycle down that bush. Exhibit F, one trail lead to the corner of the house of Meadowlark between the man door and garage area of 1102 Red Wing Street, was where Carson Starkey said he saw the tricycle. Exhibit F, K-9 Yodi detecting human remains outside of the Snowball house in Cuna under a pile of rocks. Under a pile of rocks. That's interesting. Didn't know that. So Yodi hit outside of Brandon Shirtlift's mom's house under a pile of rocks. That's interesting. What's up with the rocks, Brandon? Did you guys really put them in the house, or did you put them outside and cover them up with rocks in that duffel bag? I'm just speculating here, guys. Just speculating. Bannock and handler Holbert detecting human remains in the backyard of Red Wing House on November 12th of 2022. Exhibit F, K-9 Yodi and Yannick and handler Gibson alerted on the trunk of a white Lexus car in the Fruitland impound lot on January 29th of 2025. So I was right in speculating that it was a car that was in the impound lot, because J.D. Huff did ask for $6,000 of Michael Vaughan's reward fund money to buy a particular item. Exhibit B, K-9 Aggie and handler Arkinson also alerted to the truck. I think this is supposed to say trunk of the white Lexus car. So now you have 1, 2, 3 dogs. 3 dogs hitting on the white Lexus car. Exhibit B. However, it is unclear whether the canines alerted on the maroon GMC truck or blue Toyota car that were allegedly used in the kidnapping and not the Lexus. Oh my gosh, it's never been said whether or not it was the Toyota. They're going based off of what Stacey Wondra said, okay? Why else would there be residual scent in the Lexus? They use the truck to go, right, to Cuna, and they use that Lexus either to move Michael's body from the Wandra's backyard, or they use the Lexus to go back to Cuna the next day to get Michael, because that's what Stacey Wondra is saying, right? Exhibit B, interesting, on February 14, 2025, when there have been no remains removed from the vehicle, 3 separate canines with 2 different handlers did not alert on the same white Lexus vehicle. So you have a few that didn't. And I just want to know, how well are those handlers? How are those dogs trained? Those are the questions that I would start asking myself if you have something where dogs hit and dogs didn't. Then you have to start questioning the handlers and the canines and their training and everything else. Exhibit A and G, importantly, as it related to the Wondras, there were several searches that resulted in no alerts, but 10 alerted, you know, to the Wandra's house. 10. On November 15, 2021, Mr. Wondra consented to a K-9 cadaver unit to search his backyard, and the K-9 unit did not alert on any human remains in November of 2021, which could be explained by the fact that the yard had not been disturbed and those scent pools wouldn't be lingering around like they were in November of 2022 when they had started to excavate. Or Yeah. Or maybe Stacey Wondra knew that Michael had already been moved. I don't know. Exhibit C, a Cadaver K-9 unit was deployed inside the Red Wing house and did not alert to any scent of human remains. In addition to the K-9 alerting to the Wandra's backyard on November 2022 and the live scent K-9 tracking the scent of Michael Vaughan's shoes to the garage area of the Red Wing house, there were other positive alerts related to this case. On July 28th of 2021, K-9 Blue and Handler alerted at 907 Southwest 9th Street. Southwest 9th Street. Trying to figure out where that is. Southwest 907. That's like the corner of 9th in Arizona. Is that right? Woodchipper, good to see you. I'm not sure where 907 would be, but I think that that would be around 9th in Arizona. Exhibit I, which is, we've heard about 8th in Arizona. That's where they stopped to do the power steering and everything else. Were they going to let Michael go back to the same area where he was taken? We don't know. What were they really doing pulling over on the side of the road? And Stacey Wondra says that he heard Michael crying back there and they were checking on him. On February 7th of 2024, K-9 Yodi with Handler Gibson alerted to a concrete drainage ditch on Highway 16 and West State Street in Ada County. Alerted to a concrete drainage ditch. Exhibit E on November 24th, 2024, K-9 Yodi and Yannick with Handler Gibson and other handlers all search Birding Island at 4660 Northwest 2nd Avenue in Plymouth, and all dogs showed interest in an area covered by sawgrass and cattail plants. Exhibit E, the next morning on November 25th of 2029. 2029? What the heck? When was this? Because this is wrong. Don't know. We're not going to know, you guys, because Exhibit E, because they don't know how to type or something. The next morning, so this one was November 24th. So it must be of 2024, not 2029. November 25th of 2029, Yodi and Gibson alerted to a different area of the pond. Exhibit E. This is the argument. So it looks like there have been several places that dogs have alerted to in certain areas. Was that alerts for Michael Vaughan? I don't know. I don't know how they search for Michael Vaughan. Do they, what do they alert on? They alert on residual scent. And in these areas, I don't know what kind of residual scent they would be hitting on other than human remains. Could be from Michael, could be from anybody in these, other areas. It's interesting. In concrete and then at what looks to be some kind of pond. How would they determine whether or not they're alerting on Michael or not? That's interesting. I need to... Or just alerting on it, residual scent in itself. So here's the argument. A hearing on the admissibility of the state's evidence is required in order to fulfill the foundational requirement for the admissibility of expert testimony and evidence pursuant to IRE 702. Expert testimony is governed by Idaho rule, which provides a witness who is qualified as an expert, which Julie Gibson is, by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education, may testify in the form of an opinion or otherwise if the expert's scientific, technical, or other specialized knowledge will help with the fact to understand the evidence or determine a fact in issue. Furthermore, under the Rule of Evidence 703, an expert may base an opinion on facts or data in the case that the expert has been made aware of or personally observed. If experts in the particular field would reasonably rely on those kinds of facts or data in forming an opinion or inference on the subject, they need not be admissible for the opinion to be admitted. But if the facts or data would be otherwise be inadmissible, the proponent of the opinion may disclose them to the jury only if their probative value in helping the jury evaluate the opinion substantially outweighs the prejudicial effect. Under these rules, the proponent of testimony may lay out foundational evidence showing that the individual is qualified as an expert on the topic about which he or she will testify, which we know for a fact, I've looked it up, Julie is, according to expert testimony in general admissible if it informs the jury about a matter outside of common experience and knowledge. 703 states facts and data that are otherwise inadmissible but our expert's opinion are only disclosed to the jury if their probative value assists the jury and that opinion outweighs any prejudicial effect of such disclosure. Likewise, Rule of Evidence 403 further allows for exclusion of relevant evidence if its probative value is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice, amongst other reasons. 403, this even if evidence is admissible under 702, it is still subject to potential exclusion if the probative value is substantially outweighed by 403 facts such as unfair prejudice, confusing the issues, or misleading the jury. Idaho 702 requires that this court fulfill a gatekeeping function to prevent unreliable evidence from being presented to the jury under the guise of expert testimony or evidence. The reliability of scientific evidence is essentially an inquiry into whether the testing process or technique is scientifically valid. Additionally, part of the foundational requisites for such evidence hinges on the qualification of the person offering the testimony or performing testing at issue. 327, although Idaho has not expressly adopted the Daubert test to analyze the admissibility of all types of expert testimony under 702, the Idaho Supreme Court has used some of the Daubert's standards in assessing whether the basis of an expert opinion is scientifically valid. Among the pertinent considerations under Daubert were whether the theory or technique at issue can be used or can be and has been tested, subject to peer review and publication, and withstood the scrutiny of scientific community. Also relevant is where there is a known or potential rate of an error. Finally, Daubert identifies the degree to which the theory has gained widespread acceptance as an indicator that may have been bearing, or whether the evidence has a sufficient foundation of reliability. The purpose of the rules of evidence specific to expert testimony in part to serve a gatekeeping function that prevents speculative or unreliable evidence from being placed before the jury under a guise of scientific proof. While a court may not exclude testimony simply because it disagrees with an expert's conclusion, it must distinguish between the self-validating expert who uses scientific terminology to present unsubstantiated personal beliefs and genuine experts employing methods recognized as valid within their respective fields. When an expert is proffered to provide testimony in the form of an opinion, additional foundational requirements also must be met to be admissible. It is incumbent on an expert to set forth specific facts upon which an opinion is based. For much of the expert testimony that is proffered for use at trial, the weight and credibility of the evidence may often be matters of the jury to resolve. However, that does not mean that all purported expert testimony or evidence should be permitted to go before a jury to test its validity, or I can't even pronounce that word. The Idaho rules of evidence require that the trial court must first examine whether the expert is qualified to present the opinion at issue, along with whether the substance of the testimony, evidence, or technique testified as itself affixed to a sufficiently reliable foundation. In other words, the weight of an expert's opinion is a question for the jury, but whether a witness is an expert or has employed a valid method to reach his or her conclusion is the question that must first be answered by trial court. Expert opinions that are speculative, conclusory, okay, sorry you guys, some of these words are crazy, and unsubstantiated and inadmissible because this testimony does not assist jury. Testimony is speculative when it theorizes about a matter as to which the evidence is not sufficient or certain knowledge. Layered on the requirements are additional prerequisites where the testimony at issue purports to the scientific or forensic testimony establishing causation for injuries. This particular type of testimony requires the heightened showing from other types of experts' evidence. This expert testimony is only admissible when the expert is qualified expert in the field, which Julie Gibson is, and so is the other woman. The evidence will be of assistance to the trier of fact, and experts in the field would reasonably rely on the same type of facts relied on by the expert in forming his opinion. To that end, the foundation of the administration of expert testimony based on scientific knowledge includes both that the witnesses are an expert in the field and that there is scientific basis for expert's opinion. This means the court must review both the expert's qualifications and records relied on by the expert to determine whether the expert can establish the necessary foundation. No, I'm just teasing. This is a mouthful, and thank God my teacher always picked on me to read out loud. But words still fumble me. There are still some out there, especially in the court docs, that really fumble things. Moving on, for this type of testimony in particular, the reasoning for methods underlining the opinion must be established to be scientifically sound and based on a reliable degree of probability. Mere possibility is insufficient. In reaching this conclusion, relevant considerations include, but are not limited to, whether the theory can be tested, whether the theory has been subject to peer review and publication, whether there is close oversight and observation of the test subjects, the presence of safeguards in the techniques used to ensure scientific validity, whether there is any analogy to other scientific techniques that have been scientifically validated, the nature and breadth of the inferences drawn, whether the basic data is verifiable by the court and the jury, the availability of an expert to test and evaluate the technique, and 9, the probative sufficient significance of the evidence under the circumstances of the case. Mr. Wondra submits that for any expert testimony in a criminal case that purports to provide information in the form of testimony by K-9 handler about the presence of scents from live scent tracking canines or the presence of human remains from cadaver canines, which purports to provide information that a scent was tracked from one area to another to allude to the persons related to the scent was present, or that human remains were detected in an area. The trial court must be cautious to ensure that the testimony provided meets the foundational requirements and reliability prior to being presented to the jury. But the state's proposed expert testimony from K-9 Banshee and handler D. Witt, K-9 Yodi and handler Gibson, K-9 Bannock and handler Deborah Holbert, or any other K-9 and handler duo team regarding live scent tracking human remains detection is so problematic that a separate hearing must be held on the fundamental flaws and lack of required substantiation for the evidence that the state is now seeking to admit. Jesus. So, sorry. Didn't mean to use your name in vain there, Lord. Problematic, huh? That's what they're saying. That there are fundamental flaws and lack of required substantiation for the evidence that the state is now seeking to admit. Wow. I mean, let's just face it. These canine dogs are smarter than Stacey Wondra. I mean, so... the live scent tracking and human remains detections by a canine to which the handler interprets is so unreliable that any testimony should be excluded pursuant to Daubert because the theory cannot be tested. No safeguards to ensure scientific validity. The method is not analogous to other scientific techniques that have been scientifically validated and admissible at trial. It is based on unvalidated assumptions. I'm surprised he didn't put guesses there. The basic data is not verifiable in court and jury. It is not supported by a testable scientific methodology or method, and the probative significance of the evidence under the circumstances of the case is low, while the prejudicial nature of the evidence is high. Jeez. Right? He's really reaching. He is reaching. Shannon is also saying you will like some of what I sent, and you will look at this later and see what I found as well, which we will go over because Shannon sent me some information, which is great. I don't have time to go over that information today, but it will give us something else to talk about on another live. So, yeah, I just don't have the time to go over that today, and I appreciate you so much, Shannon, for doing that. Pursuant to Combs, that are several issues that require the exclusion of any testimony related to live scent tracking and human remains detection canines. First and foremost, the purpose of the utilization of canines in police work is to assist in locating missing persons or human remains. In this case, Michael has not been found either alive or deceased. The canine units in this case were utilized with purpose of locating either Michael or his remains, although there have been alerts on the scene of human remains. That means absolutely nothing to the jury inquiry into whether at some point Michael's body was in the Red Wings house backyard, as those alerts at best show that some form of human decay, whether that be blood of a finger cut in the backyard while doing yard work or blood seeping in the yard from a water source when one has possibly cut themselves shaving, turning a testability of the scientific evidence in this case, it is impossible to test the results whether Michael or a scent related to him was found in Red Wing house or whether Michael's remains were at one point in the Red Wing house backyard. Unlike scientifically sound tests such as the presence of controlled substances by a chemist or the blood alcohol concentrate from a driver measured by a machine or even a psychiatrist making a diagnosis based on interviews coupled with the use of testing measures, the use of canines to determine the presence or absence of scent-related things is not testable unless under controlled environments or if the actual items is found. Safeguards are vital in determining the scientific discipline's validity and objectively in what is being tested on interpreted. Safeguards include structured protocols, standardized testing to produce certification for a specialty, ensuring that it is not falsification of data or alerts, and double-blind testing. Typically, these safeguards are through standardized training. In fact, there are several certifying agencies, but none of them have standardized training. The methods of human remain detection canines and live scent tracking canines is not analogous, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, to other scientific techniques. The science behind the canines and their handlers is akin to bite mark analysis, which was where dentists used to testify that they could match a mouth to a specific bite mark based on the individual's teeth. The method was a subjective view of the bite, and the analysis based on the dentist and expert observed. Like bite marks and canines are brought to the location and are instructed to search. Then the handler watches the dog's behavior, and based off the wag of a tail or breathing change, the handler can pinpoint and say that is an alert. Absence finding the human remains or the person searched for, the court is left with the expert's word that they can see a change, and this is what it means. Unlike medical doctors who can point to a bruise or a pattern or bruises or a certain break in a certain bone, there is nothing that a canine, and then this says Exhibit F, preliminary hearing day 1, and then it gives page numbers of something that they used. There is nothing that a canine handlers can objectively point to that someone other than the handler can see and comprehend. Well, duh, because they're trainers. They train their dogs to learn certain alerts and they give them. That's how a trainer knows. Likewise, since there is no basic data that is verifiable in court or jury, when then the jury has nothing other than the handler's interpretation of what it means, specifically when there is nothing to show for the alert. There is nothing concrete that the jury could look at or any basic data that can be pointed to that the K-9 smelled something and that it means there and ergo the person was there. A big issue with experts in human remains detection and live scent tracking is that it is based on unvalidated assumptions. Although all 3 K-9s and their handlers went through training and passed certification course, the fact that they were able to pass those tests means little when without finding the thing the K-9 is looking for is not there. Well, explain to me Justin Whitten. This is a scent dog, and he followed Michael's scent, using Michael's scent, and tracked Michael to the Wondra's house and everywhere the tricycle was. So explain that. Although the K-9 might be able to alert on the dead body, and when the ground is dug there is in fact a dead body, absent being able to point to a blood stain or bone, there is nothing to prove that the alert is anything more than an assumption. There is no way to validate an alert when nothing is found. If human remains are not located, then there is nothing that can be substantiated from the alert. In this case alone, it is evident that there is not a consistent consensus among K-9s and what they alerted on. For example, the human remains detection K-9 as it related to the Red Wing house backyard cannot come from an agreement as to whether there are human remains and where those are located. The cadaver dogs were run on November 15th of 2021, a few months after the disappearance and alleged burial in the backyard of the Red Wing house. However, on November 15th of 2021, there was no alert on the handlers when the handler had no knowledge that the house had any significance. Well, what if, and I'm purely going to speculate here, what if you have Brandon Shirtliff talking about this crawl space, talking about this basement? Was Michael there? Was he not buried in the backyard until after November of 2021? I mean, August, September, October, November. That's 4 months after Michael Vaughan was abducted. Then maybe because it really doesn't make sense, like Stacey Wondra says, that they went and got Michael and they brought him back the next day and they buried him that night, right? Who does that? When they're still searching for Michael Vaughan, you're going to tell me that they brought Michael Vaughan back to the Wondra's house and they buried him? They left disturbed dirt there for the police. I mean, the police came in August 1st, and even Juanita Kelleher told Stacey in his interview with detectives that she didn't see any dirt marks or disturbed dirt in the backyard. So she actually was acting like she didn't believe Stacey Wondra's story that Michael had been buried right after they went and got him and brought him back, which is exactly what I'm trying to say. So, was this dog only brought here on November 15th to look at the yard? And had they, and I'm sorry for going into detail, trigger warning here, had they taken that duffel bag and maybe wrapped it in something or put it in several garbage bags, would scent still be around And, for a dog to smell. And like I said, I'm purely speculating here, but this is only 4 months after Michael disappeared, after you have one of the suspects that really focuses on this crawl space, who also told detectives that they saw Sarah and Stacey Wondra put Michael in the duffel bag, underneath the house in the crawl space or the basement. So was he even buried? Is that why this cadaver dog does not hit there? Fast forward to November 12th of 2022, several cadaver dogs alerted on the same backyard that was decided did not have human remains a year earlier. And the difference is the digging in the backyard could have created scent pools, or Michael Vaughan wasn't buried in the backyard until after November 15th of 2021. November 12, 2022, cadaver dogs alerted on the same backyard that was decided not to have been human remains a year earlier. The only information that changed was an assumption that the body of Michael Vaughan was buried in the backyard, which was known to the handlers. Likewise, when the two groups of cadaver K-9s were dispatched to sniff the white Lexus car, a set of dogs alerted on the vehicle on January 2025. However, a few weeks later, with different group, there was no alert. As for the live scent detection dog, the trails was started at random intersection and not Michael's house, and the scent was a scent. Well, let's just back up right here. Not from Michael's house. They didn't want to take the dog to Michael's house because they don't want the dog to have any other scent except for Michael's shoe, except for Michael's pillow. Yes, that BRANDI also used, but the day that Dustin Witt's dog hit was Michael's shoe. They didn't want to start at the house. It doesn't make sense to start at Michael's house. They already had a K-9 that did that, and Michael's trail ended on 907 9th Street, as we just read earlier in this, which I believe is 9th in Arizona. The trail started at a random intersection and not at Michael's house, and the scent that was used was a scent that could be attributed to BRANDI NEAL Vaughan, Michael's mom, who used his pillow. Yeah, well, they used his shoe the day that Banshee hit in all those locations. And the family laundry that was done there, where a sock was washed with their family members' laundry and then put in a sock where a scent pad was formed. But the sock wasn't used when Banshee went out to search for Michael. Since there was not a specific person that was attempting to be apprehended starting from a particular starting point, the fact that the live scent tracking may have tracked to a trail to the Red Wing house has little significance. They think it has little significance, even though the Wondras house is the only house out of 300 in that entire neighborhood. They're grasping for straws here. This is gross. The defense concerns on the reliability of scientific methods are specific. The assumption that a K-9 can track a scent from one location to another to prove in a court of law that a person was present at a location that tracking ended is unproved theory. With the theory being unable to prove, the defense is left with little information as to the validity of the search. Defense is unable to question about the accuracy, as there are not set methods and nothing to look at in a specific dog, but to trust the handler interpreting their K-9 the right way. Although dogs are trainable, and if you spend enough time with a dog, you learn their cues and they need to use the bathroom, and they're really want to go on a walk. Dog picks up on humans as well. If nothing is found and the handler knows from the police the theory of the case or that you are being pointed to a specific area, then the canines can pick up on that energy. Oh, give me a break. They're not picking up on the energy of the Wondra's house because those handlers testified in court that they didn't know where they were. Well, specifically, Dustin Witt didn't know about the Wondra's house. So he couldn't have the canine can't just pick up on his energy to go to the Wondra's. And one of the other cadaver dog handlers let their dog walk the neighborhood and everything and didn't even lead the dog to the Wondra's house. The dog led her there. It was already like excited in a way and smelt something and went directly to the Wondra's house. There was nothing to differentiate between whether the canine is truly smelling the human remains that belong to a specific person or if the canine is alerting to the fact that the energy is different with their human. Wow. Then this person does not understand the relationship between canine handlers and their dogs. Under the totality of these issues, the issue with canine with their handlers is that the focus is on conclusions and the final alert. The focus should be on principles and methods, which in this field, canines and their handlers do not a set of principles used to employ their services and the meaning of any expert. The method in which questions, as well as there are not independent organizations or standards that control the detection and tracking. Without finding anything that confirms that Michael was at the Red Wing house or that his remains were found or buried in or at the Red Wing house, there is nothing to confirm the assumption based on canine alerts interpreted by the handler that either of these things are true. The use of canines is most used in determining probable cause during a traffic stop, whether a police officer suspects that controlled substances are in a vehicle. During these canine sniffs, the item being sought is a known smell, and then the item by itself has its own illegality, such as Coney. It's going to name a bunch of stuff here that I'm not going to talk on the channel because I want this to be able to go out in the algorithm. It's just a bunch of DRUGSs that are being said here. Human remains are not in themselves illegal, and the smell is not tied to a specific person. Likewise, for live scent tracking, the possible presence of the scent is not in itself illegal. Human remains detection canines and live scent tracking canines and their handlers can be valuable if the result is that the missing person is found or human remains are discovered. However, without having something to verify, so these dogs are stupid unless they actually find something, which basically is saying that residual scent and all of its scientific stuff that we know about residual scent, handlers and dogs, it's just not possible. Give me a break. However, without having something to verify, like the fact the canine is correct and its handler is correct and reading the canine, the mere speculation that the dog may have sniffed human remains and may have picked up on a scent of a tracked person is not scientifically valid. To put this information before a jury would not only violate Mr. Wondra's due process constitutional rights, but also provide such an unfamiliar trial that it would not be constitutionally sound. Plain victim. His rights are being violated again by dogs. Oh, poor Stacey Wondra. Poor Stacey. I feel so bad for him. Not at all. In the realm of controlled substances, K-9 sniffing and subjective belief that a dog has identified the presence of controlled substance in a vehicle is insufficient for the court to determine probable cause when there is not a final alert. Subjective belief that a dog has exhibited such behaviors should never be sufficient, even if a final indication is not required. Without objective evidence, the court will not have an independent and unbiased source of evidence of what the dog did or other occasions that was sufficient to the established probable cause. In Idaho case law, canines are used for probable cause and not for the identity or presence of controlled substance in a vehicle. The defense knowledge in Idaho court has never let a canine and their handler testify that we alerted on a vehicle, but we didn't find controlled substances. However, since the canine alerted and performed a final alert, there must have been drugs in the vehicle at some point, so this is sufficient proof that the person possessed drugs. If this court allows the state to produce evidence of an alert human remains without proof of actual remains or live scent tracking without proof of person sought being found would be a fatal error. And if you guys watched my show when I went over Dustin Witt's dog Banshee, they have had remarkable. That's why the FBI called in Dustin Witt from California, because of Dustin Witt's record. Impeccable. Finding people within minutes. And that dog did an amazing job finding Michael Vaughan's scent every single place Michael Vaughan was and on the tricycle. In Idaho, there are no cases on point specific to cadaver dogs. However, out of the United States District Court for California, there are a few points. The defendant has charged and convicted of second-degree murder, where he was alleged to have killed his wife and rearranged the house to look like a burglary. The police impounded the defendant's car and asked 2 cadaver dog handlers to inspect the vehicle. Smith, who is the volunteer canine handler with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, she was specialized in handling cadaver dogs, trained to locate dead bodies as part of bodies. Smith's dog, Flash, who is a 13-year-old border collie, was certified cadaver dog trained to look for bodily fluids. During a blind test in the impound lot, Smith and the canine started to hit on a separate car ridden with bullet holes and soaked with blood. Smith pulled the canine away and told her dog to check another specific car 6 to 8 feet away. K-9 circled the car and jumped in the trunk. In the appeal, the defendant was challenging its attorney's representation, as part of which was failing to present expert testimony about the unreliability of the dog scent evidence. It was noted during testimony that Flash cannot differentiate between blood from a live person versus a dead person. On cross-examination, Smith admitted that Flash was not qualified under the FBI dog protocols. Smith also admitted she was aware of scientific literature that was critical of the dog scent evidence and acknowledged that the dog can make mistakes. This doesn't pertain at all to Julie Gibson, though, and these other handlers, because they are qualified under certain dog protocol. They are. Smith agreed that the importance of the handler not to telegraph to the dog, and agreed that this was not a blind test because she directed Flash to the car, which is not what these dog handlers have done. Defendant presented during the appeal of declaration from Associate Professor Myers, who reviewed Smith's testimony and concluded the dog scent evidence was unreliable as indicative of the presence of decomposed human tissue because Smith directed the dog to the specific car. Dogs are susceptible to conscious of unconscious cues from their handler as to where the handlers hope the dog will alert. Although the court did not find counsel because of the effective cross-examination, this case is important to show the subjective nature of canine scent dog alerts. As it relates to the Wondra case, although the impound lot was a blind test, the alerts to the Red Wing yard were not. Concerning to the testimony that was heard during the preliminary hearing gave from handler Gibson and handler Holbert, who refused to admit that dogs can make mistakes, unlike handler Smith. Well, they believe their dogs didn't make a mistake. What's wrong with that? Sounds like a good handler to me. And the defendant was charged and convicted first-degree murder of Tracy Lyons. Lyons' body was never found, though no witness saw or heard from him after January of 1998. The evidence supporting the defendant's conviction came from 1. Davison's ex-wife and Lyons' stepdaughter, 2. Lyons' wife, 2 dogs trained and state certified in recovering human remains searched the area identified by Lyons' wife, though the dogs alerted to the area, which they were trained to do when detecting any trace of human remains. No part of human remains was found. Later, 3 state certified cadaver dogs and their handlers searched the area. First dog responded to some sort of cadaver scent in the area. The 2 remaining dogs searched the area separately and alerted within 18 inches to 2 feet of the twist alert spot. The area was dug and no human remains or clothing were found. The dogs trained in finding historic bones were brought in that might also be found that night, but also found nothing. Dog handler Shirley concluded that because the cadaver dogs alerted, but the historical ones did not, human remains must have been in the area but moved. She testified in her opinion, which she acknowledged was not supported by any scientific study, that the scent of human remains rises and collected the foliage of the trees and brush, even though the leaves are renewed seasonally. Was an appeal based on the attorney's performance, and one of the claims was that his attorney did not challenge the cadaver dog evidence. Expert testimony is necessary when laypersons are unable to make an informed judgment without benefit of such testimony. And then there's another thing here, but let's just skip all of this and go to where he's going to talk about why it pertains to Stacey. God, he just goes on and on and on. Using all of these different just scamming you guys. This is a lot of court stuff. Just giving examples is all they're doing here in a bunch of different cases. Given the caution, other states' cases as it relates to human remains detection canines, the court should exclude any testimony of the canine tracking and detection specifically to the facts of this case, given the scant scent evidence that connects the crime from occurring and Mr. Wondra's participation. This evidence would be highly prejudicial and is not scientifically valid, given that law enforcement utilize canines as investigative reasons to gain probable cause to get into vehicles when narcotics are alleged to be located live scent alerts and human remains detection alerts should not spill over to the court of law in front of juries where the assumptions are unreliable and opinions that go with the alerts are purely speculative without corroborating evidence. Number 3, the IRE 103, 104. This court should hold the Daubert hearing in advance of trial and outside the presence of the jury in order to determine whether the state's evidence has sufficient foundation and is significantly reliable to be admitted into evidence at trial. Mr. Wondra further asserts the Idaho Rule Evidence 103 and 104 require this court to hold a hearing in advance of trial and outside of the presence of the jury to decide the admissibility of the state's proposed expert testimony. When a party seeks to introduce expert testimony, the court must decide any preliminary question about whether a witness is qualified or evidence is admissible. Gotta take a drink, y'all. 104 Idaho Rule of Evidence 104 governs preliminary question on the admissibility of such evidence, providing that the court must conduct a hearing on a preliminary question so that the jury cannot hear it. Justice so requires. 104, the purpose of this is to prevent the jury from hearing inadmissible evidence, and the extent practical, the court must conduct the jury trial so that the inadmissible evidence is not suggested to the jury by any means. In this light, when inadmissible evidence is allowed, even if for foundational purposes, care should be taken to ensure the party will not be prejudiced by the jury hearing inadmissible evidence. We don't want Stacey to feel like a victim, right? The Idaho Supreme Court recently addresses the importance of holding such a hearing on preliminary evidentiary questions outside the presence of a jury. A motion seeking a pretrial ruling on the admissibility of evidence is known as a motion of limine. Idaho courts recognize the importance of the motion in limine. A motion in limine enables a judge to make a ruling on evidence without first exposing it to the jury. It avoids juror bias, sometimes generated by the objections to evidence during the trial. The court ruling on the motion enables counsel of both sides to make strategic decisions before trial on the content and order of the evidence to be presented. Federal courts have further reasoned on the importance of a preliminary assessment and issues regarding expert testimony. The United States Supreme Court has held that applying the similar federal rule of evidence 702 controlling expert testimony entails a preliminary assessment of whether the reasoning of methods is scientifically valid and of whether the reasoning for methods properly can be applied to as facts and issue. An expert testimony is likely to carry special weight with the jury. Care must be taken to assure that a proffered witness truly qualifies as an expert, which Julie does. Additionally, expert testimony should not invade the province of the jury. Idaho Rule Evidence 104 is nearly identical to the corresponding federal rule, and therefore Idaho courts have looked into interpretations of FRE 104 when interpreting 104. The same is true for both the Idaho and federal rules governing the admission of expert testimony, although there are slight textual differences between the FRE 702, IRE 702. Idaho courts have regularly turned to interpretations of the federal rule when fleshing out our own evidentiary standards for expert testimony. Looking to a case law interpreting FRE 702 and deciding whether expert testimony is legal conclusions is permitted under all of these state and federal rules. Federal courts with discussing that procedures should be followed for evaluating admissibility of evidence under FRE 702 have repeatedly emphasized the importance of holding in limine hearing of this evidence prior to trial. We have long stressed the importance of the limine hearing under Rule 104 in making the reliability determination required under Rule 702 and the Daubert. And an abuse of direction can occur for the failure of the trial court to abide by adequate procedures when tasked with determining inadmissibility of expert testimony or evidence. Holding an abuse of discretion can occur where the district court follows the wrong procedure when confronted with questions and admissibility under the FRE 702. Where doing so reflects that the trial court has not properly fulfilled its role as gatekeeper or has abdicated its ground or gatekeeping role. While federal courts do not require the Daubert hearing be conducted in every case where admissibility of expert testimony is an issue, these hearings may be necessary in some cases, and there is a basic requirement for the parties have a meaningful opportunity to be heard on the issue prior to trial court deciding on the admissibility of the evidence. This is also consistent with Idaho practice as it relates to disputed expert testimony, where there is a significant dispute prior to trial as to whether proffered IRE 702 evidence is sufficiently reliable as to be admissible. It appears to be the common practice in Idaho to conduct a separate hearing on that question of admissibility prior to trial. Basically, they're wanting an evidentiary hearing prior to trial conducted on the state's motion to exclude expert testimony and evidence. Yeah. Where there is no absolute mandate of hearing prior to trial, in every instance where expert testimony appears or may be disputed, there are some circumstances under which the gatekeeping function of the court under the IRE 104 may require the separate hearing to be held. In a case involving such controversial proposed evidence as this one, Mr. Wondra respectfully submits that a hearing must be held in advance of trial as to whether the largely untested and untestable assumptions from final alerts or change in behavior of live sent K-9 and human remains detection K-9s as interpreted by their handlers have sufficient reliability to be presented at trial. Conclusion. This, in sum, it is impossible to determine whether a scent was properly tracked from one place to another to prove that a person was present in a location that scent was tracked to, and it is impossible to determine whether human remains that no longer exist in an area were actually detected, how long those human remains had been missing, and if it is in fact human remains that are being detected. Nonetheless, despite lack of evidence of the presence of a person in a location of human remains being in an area, the state experts have made these assumptions. The state presumably plans to rely on these assumptions at trial. Accordingly, Mr. Wondra respectfully requests this court to exclude any testimony by live scent tracking canines and human remains detection canines, or in other words, through their handler's testimony as they interpreter their dogs' final alerts and change in behavior at trial under Idaho Rules of Evidence 702, and 403, and the argued case law and the reasons have hearing on this preliminary question under Idaho Rules of Evidence 103 and 104, and by reference Daubert, as necessary to address the reliability of the largely untested, untestable, and assumptions made by canine handlers, as it is not grounded in sufficient scientific foundation. Said motion will be based on moving papers, any addendum, exhibits and attachments thereof, the court filing, and such further evidence, testimony, and oral argument as may be presented at a hearing. And a certificate, they mailed it in. I am done. Wow. For real. It's very aggravating to sit and read that, especially when I have researched these canine handlers, and all of them that were at the preliminary hearing are amazing people inside and out. They're very reliable. They have, well, Julie Gibson and the other woman, Holbert, are considered to be experts, as along with Dustin Witt. So this is just them throwing crap at the wall and hopes that it will stick. Yeah, wow, drink time. Thank you. Under your scars, I am. Whew. These court documents are only going to get longer too, you guys. The thing about it is after I did print out on my printer, one of the very first things, I was just like, oh, wait a minute. So much ink. I mean, it almost used a whole cartridge of ink to print out the paper. And that costs so much money. And I know further along we get, it's going to be more paper. And I really wish what I could do is print it all up and highlight all of the very specific stuff. But I do like reading the court documents and getting to know all of the details in how they're going to reach, like really reaching here, in my opinion, to try to get all of these, the testimonies thrown out. But in all of my research and everything that I have done, the accuracy of some of the canines can be up into the 90 percentile. So that in itself speaks volumes. I believe that the dogs did hit on Michael Vaughan's scent at the Wonders' backyard, at the Kuna house, on the Lexus, all three of which Stacey Wondra has talked about, and that in itself is also huge, huge. Oh my goodness. Talk about a headache. But when when I use the links and stuff to read from, I cannot highlight what I really want to talk about. So I am so thankful for all of you to come and, listen to these court documents, because I know it can get long Sometimes it can even get boring. But what I really liked seeing, honestly, out of this entire 28 pages was how many dog handlers or canines and their handlers were used. There were a lot. And that shows me that they did everything they can to look for Michael. And then you do have great handlers and canines being used in Michael's case. Mountain Search and Rescue. I mean, Julie Gibson and where she works and where, you know, her nonprofit is absolutely amazing. They do so much work. They do it for free, you guys. They're not like another dog handler that I know up here in Longview, Washington, that scams everybody out of their money and everything else. They don't take any money. They do this out of the kindness of their heart to go out and search for people or search for remains. So I think that's important also to bring up. I know I said a lot, so let's just see what's in here. Rach is here. The dogs and handlers they use were top of the field. Impeccable records. Exactly. Court case Courtney is here. Thank you so much for being here, hun. McSporin says, yep, if you take his confession and the sin alerts, he's toast, right? Chuck Anderson's granddaughter is here. Thank you so much for coming in. Where, or well, their handler, I wish dogs could talk, right? But that's why we have such good handlers, so they can tell us what their dog is saying to them. What, you know, like this defense attorney can say that we know when our dogs have to go out and pee because they give a certain alert, right? Or we know when they're hungry because they're giving us something, right? But when the dog's looking for human remains or a person, we can't understand that. But we can understand the other. That doesn't even make sense. It really doesn't. Because if you don't let your dog out, it's going to pee everywhere. If you don't feed your dog's going to starve. So if you're not paying attention, then what? We're just supposed to ignore when our dogs are telling us something? No. We as human beings know from raising our dogs what they're trying to tell us. Now, imagine being a handler, an expert handler with expert dogs. They know what their dogs are trying to say. I had Judge Brian Lee tell an attorney one time that I did a better job being prepared versus he did representing the other part. And I believe that, Shannon. You are so friggin' smart. I love that. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, whoever gifted me a membership. Thank you so much. Whoever did gift, let me look up here, see if I missed. Misdemeanor says, I'm just going through chat, you guys. If the argument is whether they used a pillow of Brandi's, I wonder why the dogs didn't go back to the Vaughn's house, or why Kay's DNA was found on the trike and not Brandi's. Brandi wasn't riding trike. Well, they didn't use the pillow that had Brandi's scent on it to find, well, when Dustin Witt used his K-9 Banshee misdemeanor and he hit at the Wondra's house, the fence, you know, Red Wing and Meadowlark, over the bluff where the tricycle, everywhere this tricycle was and where Michael was seen riding this tricycle, Michael's shoe was used that day to put into this scent machine type thing that extracts all of the scent, okay, all of the scent. And your feet have sweat and so many other chemicals. Have you guys ever heard of the all naturopath stuff that you can do where you wrap your feet up in certain things and it pulls the toxins from your feet? Your feet have thousands of different chemicals in them, and a shoe is the perfect scent to use, and that's what Dustin Witt used to find the Wondra's house. He did use the pillow the very next day, but we have never learned what Dustin Witt found, or if anything was found using that scent article on August 3rd. So maybe they have Dahlberg hearing pre-trial or during trial. The witness is qualified either way. That's what I think. Thank you, Maggie, for coming in. McSporin, you done well, Sam. That's a lot of reading. It really is. But I do it, I want everybody to know what is going on. I want us all to be prepared for what's going to come in trial. I want us all to know what to expect. These attorneys, these defense attorneys, to try pulling in court. And if it's streamed live, like we're gonna already know, oh yeah, they filed that motion. Okay, I know exactly where this defense is going with that. But they allowed it to come into court, so it must be something, right? And we're gonna find out come pre-trial, which is the August here. Oh my gosh, we're just not far away from August, are we? August 4th, pre-trial hearing, where they will go over all of the evidence and decide what's going to be allowed and what's not going to be allowed. And then we'll know what the judge believes to be good evidence, what to allow. We'll know if these, dog handlers and their testimonies will be allowed. No, thank you for coming in. Thank you all for being here. Court documents can be grueling. They really can be. Some of those things, though, shocked me. Like 10 dogs all hit in the backyard. What? 10 dogs, you guys. I don't care about any of the other stuff. I mean, 10 dogs hit in the Wondra's backyard. As another creator would say, maybe it was Indians buried there years ago. Give me a break. Yep, just looking to see what sticks. Chuck Anderson, Grant. I just love so many familiar faces in here. Thank you guys for coming in. Under Your Scars, thank you for being here. I need to take another drink. Callie, it's crazy to think that these ESQ actually passed their bar exam and that they're still incompetent. Oh, big drink. Yeah, my throat is hurting. Not so much reading. It's unusual for free defense to even file all these motions. I don't know if it's unusual, maybe for a free attorney, I don't know. But as far as I can tell, it's not unnormal for a defense attorney to file anything and everything. And if you've got Stacey Wondra as a client, you know damn well, get the cadaver dogs thrown out, get my mom's testimony, thrown out. You got to do something about that letter. Oh my gosh, it's a false confession. I have too many disabilities. I have fetal alcohol syndrome, and everything, needs to be thrown out. Everything I told to the detectives, they coerced me. I can see it now. He is going at them. Throw it out, throw it out, throw it out. I don't want that here. Try everything you can. Because Stacey is not stupid. He's not. I don't care how low they say his IQ is, okay? His entire life, even the district attorney, Mike Duke, said in court that Stacey Wondra and the others were really, really good at getting rid of evidence, destructing all of the evidence. so that there wasn't anything left for them to find, physical evidence that leads to forensic evidence. It's insane to me how smart Stacey Wondra actually was in destroying all of that evidence. I'm just looking through chat right here since I didn't really look at chat at all. Accusatory of the court, big mistake. Yep. Since Banshee found the trike with DNA on it, they can throw out the dog's whole testimony. They can't pick and choose what was proven by Banshee. We don't know if there was any DNA evidence found on the bike. They can't throw out the dog's whole testimony. Exactly. And they can't pick and choose what was proven by Banshee. And that's a well-trained dog. And it was a bloodhound, you guys. You guys realize all of the different dogs have a certain amount of, knows something. It's like their scent something. I can't remember. But a bloodhound's nose and its scent is up in the 300 million scent receptors. That's what it is. Scent receptors. 300 million scent receptors. A human being has less than 100 scent receptors. Okay, less than 100. And this bloodhound, Dustin Witt, used over 300 million scent receptors. An amazing dog. Did a great job. Just showing the minimum amount of info that has been given out to the public. Any experienced prosecution could rip this defense to shreds. Yeah, I have a lot of faith in Mike Duke. Let's see. Next time I would do some reading if you want. Mixborn, thank you. I don't mind the reading. It's just so long. And I get worried that you guys are going to get so bored. It is not coincidental that Kay Michael's scent was on the tricycle. If the tricycle were Brandi and Tyler's, why would Kay's DNA scent be on it? That makes no sense. You're right. The probable cause affidavit does say something about Kay's scent being on it. I don't know if Michael's scent was on it. That did not come out at the preliminary hearing. And I think Juanita Kelleher even said that she wasn't sure that it was on there or that it wasn't. Stacey said the tricycle was used to lure Michael. Just using common sense cancels out Brandi and Tyler's from the equation. A dog, not 7 to 10. I don't know what you were trying to say there. Experts. They are experts, Brandi. They are experts. Yep, Brandi did not own a trike, did not own a pink trike. That trike was not hers in any way, shape, or form, ever. She wasn't even aware of a damn trike till the probable cause affidavit came out. So naturally, the human remains have been present due to... Oh, you're talking about the bullet holes in that other case. Okay. But I went through a lot of chat. I'm just trying to see. In case you guys don't know, Chuck Anderson, granddaughter, renewed her membership. Thank you so much. Gotta dance. I love you, girl. Thank you so much. Chuck Anderson's granddaughter also gifted a PNW Crimes Revisited membership. Thank you so much. Got to dance again. If you were gifted a membership, please tell Chuck Anderson's granddaughter. Thank you. Thank you to whoever gifted me a membership. Very kind of you. Shelly received a membership. Thank you, Sam, Maud, Brandy. I have to go. Jen, have a good one, hun. To anybody coming in on the replay, I appreciate you guys coming. The hog, Stacey Wondra, had just as much to do as the others with Takey Monkey. Absolutely. Sitting on my hands again. Yeah, as I read some of that stuff, isn't that crazy? Like, I want to know the dogs hitting on the concrete, the dogs hitting at a pond, you know, are they able to determine things like, or use things to try to help the dogs specifically look for Michael, or are they just hitting on human remains, residual sin, or whatnot? Because obviously that was places where they were looking for Michael. At what point do they stop blaming? And they seem to forget that a lot of people born with fetal alcohol syndrome are not like him. I would be pissed if I had fetal alcohol syndrome and they are using that as an excuse. It's disgusting. I agree with you 1000%. Diana is here. Thank you so much. The difference between those machines and dogs is the machines do false positive, unlike the dogs. Exactly. Brandy says, I'm just in a mood today, sending all the love and hugs. Please remember to protect your mental health and protect your heart. It is difficult to listen to everything. It really is. You do the same, Mama. Come back on replay then, Mama. Thank you, Shannon, for doing that. I'm excited to see what you sent me. Oh, okay. I was trying to see if anybody else gifted any other memberships, and I did not see you. I appreciated it very much. Just know that. I do appreciate it all. For those of you that don't know, the price to become a member has gone down. The YouTube, when I first started the channel, I'm like, I don't know what to ask from anybody to do a membership. So I just, put up $5. It was whatever. And then I found out later on that that was pretty high. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to change that. But then I found out I'd lose all the members that I already had. So, but YouTube's new thing gave me a chance to change all that. So the money has definitely gone down quite a bit. Become a member if you'd like. Definitely hit that notification bell though, because I do spur of the moment lives. Okay, I got all the way back to the back and didn't see anything else. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to hit that thumbs up, please. Let's see. Zane, Lily, my beautiful, beautiful admin. My dog can sniff out decomposed things and bring it back, but never brings back feces. So there's that. I believe it too. Her pit bulls' heads are as huge. Her pit bulls are giant beasts. Giant beasts. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you coming in so much. And I love your opinion on things. So smart. Thank you guys all so much for being here, being a part of Monkey's Army. And let me see how far away. It is 3:26. I need to grab me something to eat. I am doing a collaboration with Justin for All in 30 minutes. So I will be back in 30 minutes. And we're going to be talking about everything. And I want to hear Justin's opinion on a lot of stuff. And so that should be fun. Please, please, please come over, come back, and watch that live with me and Justin. He's streaming it over there on Clutch Them Pearls, and we'll be streaming it here. So it's kind of like a dual stream. And don't forget that tonight is Monkey Monday, and BRANDI Neal Vaughan is her channel. Go over, subscribe, and join. If I'm done with my live with Justin, I'll be over there in chat as moderator. So please, please, please. Today's a big day for Monkey and getting a lot of information out there on Stacey Wondra in this case. So I'm glad to see that, so much is going on today, because that's going to be big for the algorithm with Michael's case and Stacey Wondra. And, we're just 7 days away from it being 5 years since Michael was abducted. So please go over, join Justin and I, join BRANDI Vaughan, and I will see you guys in a half an hour. I love you guys.